Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Charles Haanel. This is the Master Key System. We are on part 17. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everyone, but some people seem to find enjoyment in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the box above and the box below, along with the original source material, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. I try to keep it clear as we go along, but sometimes I forget. With that being said, we are going to dive into part 17 of the Master Key System. This part tells of the law of vibration and why the highest principle necessarily determines the circumstances, aspects, relations, and everything with which it comes in contact. It tells why and how a knowledge of these higher forces make all physical force sink into insignificance. It explains the nature of concentration. It tells something of the practice of concentration, tells something of the results of concentration. It tells how the mind may become a magnet, how it may irresistibly attract the conditions which it desires. It tells why it is necessary to be in order to have. It tells how to unfasten the prison bars of weakness, impotence, and self-belittlement, and realize the joy of overcoming obstacles. It tells how the intuitive power is set in operation, and how this inevitably leads to success. It tells the difference between real power and the symbols of power, and why the symbols turn to ashes just as we overtake them. Now, I'm going to take the time to point out once again that the law of vibration is not one of the laws of creation. These are the 8 laws of creation. It is the law of the one, all things are one. The law of momentum, which is what they are talking about, is that all things are in motion. That which goes must return. The law of response states that there will be a response to whatever action that you take. The law of returns governs how that will be given to you. You set your intentions, you perform the action, and it is returned to you multiplied by your motivation. The law of attraction states that things of a like nature will tend to cluster. Like attracts like. The law of genders is that there are 2 genders, masculine and feminine, and they are contained in everything. You are to find the balance in them and not the exclusion of them. The law of rhythm states that everything moves in a harmonic, and the law of purpose states that everything has a purpose, even things which seem to be misaligned. These are the actual laws of creation, and a greater understanding of them will help you to overcome the challenges in your life and to perform manifestation in a very real way with effectiveness. The video will be linked above where I go into greater detail about these 8 laws. So the law of vibration is not a part of it. It is part of the law of momentum and part of the law of rhythm, but it is not the law of vibration. Introduction, Part 17. The kind of deity which a man, consciously or unconsciously, worships indicates the intellectual status of the worshiper. That is why I choose the God of all creation, he who was, is, and always shall be, with 0 mediation needed between me and him. That means I do not need anyone to die for me to be forgiven for sin. You may disagree, but I have an entire Bible study where I detail my leaving Christianity for a variety of reasons, and in the 161 videos where we go through the Bible, it becomes clear why I chose that. Ask the Indian of God, and he will describe to you a powerful chieftain of a glorious tribe. Ask the pagan of God, and he will tell you of a God of fire, a God of water, a God of this, that, and the other. My God is the God of one. He is the very first law of creation. All things are one, right? God is me, God is you. He is the space between me and you, and the space between me and you. He is everything that you can see and everything that you cannot see. He is all things at one time. That is the Holy Spirit, the electromagnetic forces of creation, which have created everything and will continue to do so. Ask the Israelite of God, and he will tell you of the God of Moses, who conceived it expedient to rule by coercive measures. See again the Bible study. Hence the 10 Commandments. Or he will tell you of Yeshua, who led the Israelites into battle, confiscated property, murdered the prisoners, and laid cities waste. And again, see the Bible study. These so-called heathen make graven images of their gods, whom they were accustomed to worship. But among the most intelligent, at least, these images were but the visible emblems which they used to facilitate mental concentration on the qualities which they desired to externalize in their lives. We of the 20th century worship a God of love, in theory, but in practice we make for ourselves graven images of wealth, power, fashion, custom, and conventionality. We fall down before them and worship them. We concentrate on them, and they are thereby externalized in our lives. That is absolutely true, and that is a big problem in all of the religious systems. Right? I follow God, and it is the God of love, true, but there is a lot more involved in it. He is here, or we are here as representatives of Him. We are part of the Trinity, right? The Trinity consists of the temple, which is your body, the thing that you navigate in this 5D space. It is the soul, which is the individualized piece of God, which is inside of your temple. It is the part that is you. It is synonymous with the mind. It is the part that makes the decisions for the temple. And the Holy Spirit, which is the electromagnetic forces of creation. It is God. He permeates the entirety of you, the entirety of me, and the entirety of the space between this. He is the part that changes the now into the next. He is the part that takes your food and turns it into fuel and takes your air and moves it through your veins. He is the part that makes all things possible. That is God. And so any other conceptualization of that is going to be incorrect. And I know that is a very broad statement. But if you are conceiving of a God that you can put your eyes on and see His face, you are doing it wrong. If you are giving your God a name other than just to distinguish it from the concept of, you're doing it wrong. If you're saying someone's name who ever walked upon the mortal earth, you are doing it wrong, because while they are of God, they are not God themselves. That again is going to step on some toes, but that's okay. That's kind of what I do over here. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize for it. I have 161 videos where we went through the discovery of who God is. You should check it out. But we do worship wealth, power, fashion, custom, and conventionality. We watch the things on TV, which was not even a thing back then. This was 1917, between the First and the Second World Wars. So television, not really a thing. Radio was, but we still worshipped the same things then. We still worshipped the job that we have that was giving us money. We still worshipped the politicians. We still worshipped the control systems. We still worshipped a person. All of these are true, right? The things which you focus and create your entire life around become gods to you. And if you are not intentional about keeping that separation, it is going to happen, whether you intend for it to or not. So, yes, this is true. The readers who master the contents of Part 17 will not mistake symbols for reality. He will be interested in causes rather than effects. He will concentrate on the realities of life and will then not be disappointed in the results. Part 17. We are told that man has dominion over all things. This dominion is established through mind. Thought is the activity which controls every principle beneath it. The highest principle, by reason of its superior essence and qualities, necessarily determines the circumstances, aspects, and relation of everything with which it comes into contact. The vibrations of mental forces are the finest and, consequently, the most powerful in existence. To those who perceive the nature and transcendency of mental force, all physical power sinks into insignificance. We are accustomed to look upon the universe with the lens of 5 senses. And from these experiences, our anthropomorphic conceptions originate. But true conceptions are only secured by spiritual insight. This insight requires a quickening of the vibrations of the mind and is only secured when the mind is continuously concentrated in a given direction. Continuous concentration means an even, unbroken flow of thought and is the result of patient, persistent, persevering, and well-regulated system. Great discoveries are the result of long-continued investigation. The science of mathematics requires years of concentrated effort to master it, and the greatest science, that of the mind, is revealed only through concentrated effort. Concentration is much misunderstood. There seems to be an effort of activity or of an idea of effort or activity associated with it, when just the contrary is necessary. The greatness of an actor lies in the fact that he forgets himself in the portrayal of his character, becoming so identified with it that the audience is swayed by the realism of the performance. This will give you a good idea of true concentration. You should be so interested in your thought, so engrossed in your subject, as to be conscious of nothing else. Such concentration leads to intuitive perception and immediate insight into the nature of the object concentrated upon. I don't know that I entirely agree with this. Concentration can happen whether or not you are intuitively doing something or not, right? Now, what an actor does is become that part through the concentration that he has already expended. True, right? So you are researching the part, you are learning the lines, you go through them repeatedly until they become a muscle memory to you. But at that point, you are no longer concentrating, right? When you are working through muscle memory, that is by definition not concentrating. And so this doesn't ring true. I haven't had a whole lot to disagree with so far, but this I definitely do, because while concentration is a part of it, and you should be training yourself to the point of muscle memory, becoming the thing which you desire to be, attracting into your life the very things that you want, not the things that you don't want, but the things that you actually want in your life. You should concentrate on them. That is the process. Then they become muscle memory. That is the result. That is two separate things. That is not the same thing. Concentration is by requirement an effort. It is not the muscle memory that is the result of practiced concentration. And so I disagree with that. All knowledge is the result of concentration of this kind. It is thus that the secrets have been wrested from heaven and earth. It is thus that the mind becomes a magnet, and the desire to know draws the knowledge, irresistibly attracts it, makes it your own. Desire is largely subconscious. Conscious desire rarely realizes its object when the latter is out of immediate reach. Subconscious desire arouses the latent faculties of the mind, and difficult problems seem to solve themselves. That is by becoming, right? That is, the subconscious here is the mind, the muscle memory of the pattern that you have established through your concentration, right? Like if you play sports, there comes a point where the effort is intrinsic to you. Swinging the bat to hit a ball, it's not something you really think about. It is something that you have to let happen. That is the subconscious. The conscious part of that is making sure that you're aligned correctly in the batter's box, that your bat extends to the proper level across the plate, that you are prepared to watch the pitch come in and to keep your eye on the ball. But the swinging of the bat, while partly conscious, is mostly muscle memory. You have done it so many times that you are doing it instinctively. That instinctive mind can more effectively utilize the things that you have trained it to do through your concentration. So once again, right, the concentration and the conscious, like, that is an effort. That is something that you have to do, but you should be doing it to the point where it becomes muscle memory and you don't have to concentrate on it. The subconscious mind may be aroused and brought into action in any direction and made to serve us for any purpose by concentration. The practice of concentration requires the control of the physical, mental, and psychical beings. All modes of consciousness, whether physical, mental, or psychical, must be under control. Spiritual truth is therefore the controlling factor. It is this which will enable you to grow out of limited attainment and reach a point where you will be able to translate modes of thought into character and consciousness. Concentration does not mean mere thinking of thoughts, but the transmutation of these thoughts into practical values. The average person has no conception of the meaning of concentration. There is always the cry to have, but never the cry to be. People fail to understand that they cannot have one without the other. They must first find the things of kingdom before they can have the things added. Momentary enthusiasm is of no value. It is only by unbounded self-confidence that the goal is reached. And again, I am going to take exception because, once again, there are things that are beyond your ability to manifest. There will be trials, tribulations, hardships, difficulties, things to overcome no matter where you are on your spiritual path. You could be the most correctly aligned spiritual person ever to walk the earth, and still people would, put a crown of thorns on your head and nail you to a tree, right? These things are still part of it. Now, I don't believe that that was intrinsic to the value of saving humanity, right? I believe that Jesus came to stop the blood sacrifice, and then they killed him for it, and then they made a whole religion based upon the blood sacrifice again, which was intrinsically bad. That doesn't mean that good things can't come from it, right? But building the religion around the blood is feeding an entity, just as much as the animal sacrifice fed an entity. And so, no matter how you align yourself, you will receive trials, troubles. There will be things that are difficult in your life. That is part of life. You are meant to overcome them. You are meant to put the effort in. You are meant to expend yourself in that direction. But that doesn't mean that you are ever going to not have trials. This self-confidence, the unbounded self-confidence, is not taking into account that. It is saying that no matter what I desire is going to be, and that is simply not true. I tell you, once again, that I have done the things that he is talking about. And I'm not talking about making money up here. I have affected change in my own life through the direct manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation. I have healed my throat. The fact that I can talk to you right now in this manner is proof of that. You don't have to believe that. You can go back and verify for yourself. Go through my videos. You can see my voice change over time. That is through this process. It is the Holy Spirit making it happen, but it is me deciding that it needed to happen. It is me expending the effort to move the things where it needed to go. But regardless, if I did it and it was not in alignment, it would not happen. And it doesn't mean that there will not be other trials. I have literally manifested health and healing in my own life, both my throat and my shoulder. These are things that I can tell you about. I can't really prove, right? But I can tell you that it happened. I can show you that it happened. I can present to you the evidence, but I'll never be able to prove to you that it was God that made it happen or that I made it happen through my meditative practices. But that is what happened. And you don't have to believe it. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to tell you. You must understand that sometimes there is still a lesson. Even when you are on the correct path, trials and difficulties will still come. You have to learn to overcome them, to see the positive in them, to learn your lesson from them. That is part of it. That is an intrinsic part of it. More so than this unbounded self-confidence. Should you be confident that the things that you wish are going to come? Yes. But not unbounded. With the full expectation that if it is outside of the will of God, it will not happen. That is a hairbreadth's difference. But that hairbreadth's difference makes all the difference in the world every once in a while, right? If you are 1 degree off in your bearing across 1,000 miles, you're way out of your target area. The mind may place the ideal a little too high and fall short of the mark. It may attempt to soar on untrained wings and, instead of flying, fall to earth. But that is no reason for not making another attempt. That's what I just said. Weakness is the only barrier to mental attainment. Attribute your weakness to physical limitations or mental uncertainties and try again. Ease and perfection are gained by repetition. Mental attainment, yes. Physical attainment, not so much. The astronomer centers his mind on the stars and they give forth their secrets. The geologist centers his mind on the construction of the earth, and we have geology. So with all things. Men center their minds on the problems of life, and the result is apparent in the vast and complex social order of the day. All mental discovery and attainment are the result of desire plus concentration. Desire is the strongest motive to action. The more persistent the desire, the more authoritative the revelation. Desire added to concentration will wrench any secret from nature, as long as it is within the plan, right? Most things are, right? There's very few things that are excluded from you. Some of them are, though, right? There are bottlenecks. Some grief is going to happen in your life no matter what you do. Some loss is going to happen in your life no matter what you do. You are more focused upon pulling in the things that you want and not the things that you don't. So when grief happens, you understand that that is a part of the process, that you are meant to feel these emotions, that you should cry and get those emotions out of you and then let them go. And then focus again upon the positive. That does not mean that you will not ever feel that particular grief again, right? Grief is like an ocean. It washes upon the shore and recedes and washes back on the shore, slowly eroding away the pain. That is going to be a thing. Your job is to not focus on the grief. When it hits you, you let it out. Cry, scream, rage, do whatever it takes to get that emotion out of you and then let it go. Don't go seeking it again. That is aligning yourself in the way that you need to be so that your desire is the positive and not the negative. Right? Desire added to concentration will do the things that you want. It was my desire for healing, in addition to the concentration of me pulling the energy and resting it where it needed to be, that allowed the healing to happen within me. That is through God, through the Holy Spirit, but it was my effort that made it happen. That is a key part that is missing in a lot of the spiritual practices today, right? Not just the desire is not enough. Concentration is effort. It is not muscle memory. It is developing the muscle memory where I am now. Like I can literally trigger meditative tranquility on will, right? I can literally just pull myself back into my mind because I have done it so many times that it doesn't take me sitting down and doing the breathing practices anymore. That is part of learning the muscle memory, but I only learned that muscle memory through concentration, which is an effort, right? That is where I greatly disagree with him. It should become muscle memory. You should be practicing it to the point where it does become muscle memory. But it is effort expended that makes that muscle learn the memory. In realizing great thoughts, in experiencing great emotions that correspond with great thoughts, the mind is in a state where it appreciates the value of higher things. Talking about the emotions, right? If you do not express the emotions, if you bottle them up, then they are the forefront of your mind. You have to expend effort to keep those bottled up. That's why I tell you to feel the emotions, right? For one, you were meant to, that's why you get them. But by releasing that, by crying or screaming or whatever it takes, you are releasing that. And therefore, you no longer have to expend the concentration to keep it. You are meant to experience great emotions. Some of those are positive: love, hope, joy. Those are positive emotions. Grief, sorrow, loss. Those are more negative emotions. But you're meant to experience both the positive and the negative in life and find the balance therein. The intensity of one moment's earnest concentration and the intense longing to become and attain may take you further than years of slow, normal, and forced effort. It will unfasten the prison bars of unbelief, weakness, impotence, and self-belittlement, and you will come into a realization of the joy of overcoming. That is true. Right, it takes effort. Right? Once again, that is where I am at. I'm not entirely sure that's where he is at. Concentration is effort. It is through that you develop this. Right? The spirit of initiative and originality is developed through persistence and continuity of mental effort. Businesses teach of the value of concentration and encourages decision of character. It develops practical insight and quickness of conclusion. The mental element in every commercial pursuit is dominant as the controlling factor, and desire is the predominating force. All commercial relations are the externalization of desire. Many of the sturdy and substantial virtues are developed in commercial employment. The mind is steadied and directed, it becomes efficient. The principal necessity is the strengthening of the mind so that it rises superior to the distractions and wayward impulses of instinctive life, and thus successfully prevails in the conflict between the higher and lower self. Yes, right? Anything that is helping you to develop concentration is going to be good. Now, you probably won't feel that way in the middle of it because it can be boring, right? Concentration is amplified by tedium, right? So if you're not enjoying it, then it seems a lot harder than it is. You should find things that spark your interest and learn to concentrate on them, because that is a much better way to learn concentration. But your employment can absolutely help with that, right? If you are at work and you are playing on Facebook when you're supposed to be working, that is you deliberately choosing the wrong thing. Now, you don't understand that is a choice, right? You're like, well, it's just a few minutes. You know, you're stealing. That's what you're doing when you are stealing, if you are not doing the thing that you were gainfully employed to do. So you should be investing your energy into that thing which they are paying you to do. I know, radical concept, right? That is developing concentration. That is developing character. That is developing discipline within yourself. That is developing humility, because, you know, they're paying you to do something. Why are you interested in yourself to where you're playing on this app on your phone or texting someone, right? I get so upset, these people. Well, if you can't text me back in 10 minutes, then you must not love me. Then you don't even know what love is. This person is gainfully employed. They're not supposed to be texting you. You shouldn't be texting them while they're at work. That is you being the temptation for them to lose their discipline. All of us are dynamos, but the dynamo of itself is nothing. The mind must work the dynamo. Then it is useful and its energy can be definitely concentrated. The mind is an engine whose power is undreamed. Thought is an omni-working power. It is the ruler and creator of all form and all events occurring in form. Physical energy is nothing in comparison with the omnipotence of thought, because thought enables man to harness all other natural power. And again, thought is the key to manifestation, right? If you cannot think of it and conceive it, it cannot happen. Vibration is the action of thought. It is vibration which reaches out and attracts the material necessary to construct and build. There is nothing mysterious concerning the power of thought. Concentration simply implies that consciousness can be focalized to the point where it becomes identified with the object of its attention. As food absorbed is the essence of the body, so the mind absorbs the object of its attention, gives it life and being. And that is true. You should be very careful what you consume, because that is you focusing your mind. There are a lot of options for consumption these days, and you are here with me, and I am grateful for that. This is a positive, hopefully, consumption. But not every consumption is. Some of them are quite negative. If you go on to some of these dramas, right? By dramas, I mean reality TV dramas, where there are people backbiting and gossiping and plotting and creating alliances and all of these things to bring down another team. That is a negative consumption. All of the focus on the non-productive parts of life, such as promiscuity, drug addiction, consumption of the chemicals, things of that nature. If you are partaking of that, then that is what you're training your consciousness to focus upon. If you are partaking in politics and you are not just getting the general idea of what's going on, but you are following the rabbit trail down into the darker recesses of where the politics may lead, you are concentrating upon that. Concentration is how you train your mind for what you want. If you are concentrating your mind for negative things, you are creating negative things in your actual life. That's the reason why they put them on television. Did you hear that? That is the reason it is on television. It's to keep you trapped in this negative cycle. I used to focus an awful lot on that. That is one of the things that I have overcome through the mental concentration. I still consume a lot of content, right? I do this for a couple hours a day until my voice gives out, and then I consume content. I am looking to learn and to grow and to be better. But not everything I consume is that. There are negative things that I consume, but I do so with the full intention of just understanding what is going on. And if it gets too negative, I will turn it off. I will block quickly. If you are intentionally choosing ignorance, you're blocked. Period, right? If you are intentionally spreading misinformation, things that are verifiably untrue, blocked. You're never going to pop up in my feed again. If you are spreading positivity, I'm going to follow you. That is how you build that concentration externally. Vibration is fundamentally part of life, right? We pulled up the chart at the beginning. That is part of two of the laws. If you concentrate on some matter of importance, the intuitive power will be set in operation and help will come in the nature of information which will lead to success. Yes. Intuition arrives at conclusions without the aid of experience or memory. Intuition often solves problems that are beyond the grasp of the reasoning power. Intuition often comes with a suddenness that is startling. It reveals the truth for which we are searching, so directly that it seems to come from a higher power. Intuition can be cultivated and developed. In order to do this, it must be recognized and appreciated. If the intuitive visitor is given a royal welcome when he comes, he will come again. The more cordial the welcome, the more frequent his visits will become. But if he is ignored or neglected, he will make his visits few and far apart. All right, now, why the hesitation, Pitt? Because once again, we are dealing with yes and no. Right? Sometimes it is something external. Sometimes it is something like a flash that just happens. When I got the 8 laws of creation, that's what happened. It was an intuitive leap, but it is based upon the accumulation of things, of experiences and memory and consumption. I have watched, listened to, read, and learned from a variety of sources throughout my life. And while I cannot normally just pull out the source material, right? I'm never going to be the one that quotes you Bible and verse, right? This particular chapter and this particular verse and this particular, that's not me. I'm not going to be the one that's like This specific study that was done in 2007 by this particular scientist has reached this particular conclusion. That is not who I am. But I've read so many studies. I've read through the proofs. I've read through the extracts. I've read through a lot of things. I have consumed those, but I don't hold them as a reference. I take what I need out of that, and that becomes part of my experience and part of my memory. Sometime 10 years later, something happens and I'm like, that's why. And I pull that out of my memory, and I don't remember where it came from, but I do remember that it was a thing. That is part of intuition as well. The things that you have learned come as experience and memory. Intuition is the putting together of those things. I make such exception to this because I have spent an awful lot of time on these particular concepts. I have, if you are unaware, I have the MBTI system that I have changed. It is not the same thing that they use in the corporate world, right, at all. The letters are the same and some of the definitions are the same, but the functionality of it is completely changed. That came through this, through me consuming all of these things and the intuition locking it in. I am an intuitive. It is my dominant trait. I am an NI dominant. That means that my intuition is what I receive from the divine, like that. Like I can put together things, I can see the pattern faster than most people. Some of that is the instinctive way that my stack is built, and part of that is that I have allowed this intuitive visitor to be recognized and appreciated. I have spent the time to understand how intuition works on an intricate, very deep level. Both my internal intuition, NI, and other people's external intuition, NE. And how those things work are an intricate part of the reformatting of the MBTI system. Now, the way that I do it, it is also an intricate part of my spirituality system, which is the Infinite Integrations playlist, where I talk about how I came to these conclusions, how I developed these conclusions, and how I put them into practical application. I can do things that other people can't. I have healed myself. I have manipulated other people's energy. I have changed the weather on at least one occasion. These are things that I have done through the practical application of my intuition. From developing the muscle memory, from doing the things. So when I disagree, it is not just some arbitrary disagreeal, and it's not just arguing semantics most of the time. There are very specific reasons why I talk about the things that I do. Intuition is the practical application of experience and memory. Sometimes there are pieces of it that are external. It is something that I never read and it just clicks. And it makes sense, right? That we did that in the Bible study. But most of the time, your intuition is based upon your experience and memory. That is something that you need to fundamentally understand, again, if you are going to attempt actual manifestation in your life, at least in the manner in which I do. I have effected change in my life through what I am telling you. Always dropping my glasses, always. All right, back to the text. Intuition usually comes in the silence. Great minds seek solitude frequently. It is here that all the larger problems of life are worked out. For this reason, every businessman who can afford it has a private office where he will not be disturbed. If you cannot afford a private office, you can at least find somewhere where you can be alone a few minutes each day to train the thought along lines which will enable you to develop that invincible power which is necessary to achieve. Now, this part is true, right? Mostly, again, right? You can have an intuitive leap in the midst of a crowd with all kinds of things going on. That is an entire possibility. You can be keyed for your intuition by somebody else's discussion that you are not even involved in. Or you can be actively involved in it and it trigger on that. This seems to be, once again, him trying to make a step where there's really not one. Right? Sometimes there are steps, and sometimes people take extra steps. See the Bible study. You should practice in silence, right? That is part of what we talk about all of the time: prayer, fasting, and meditation. Prayer is you talking to God, right? I am grateful for this. That's how I start. These are the things which I desire. That is how I end. And then I go into meditation. Meditation is the silence. It is you letting God talk back to you. Now, fasting is part of that, because not all of the time, right? You're not meant to fast all of the time. But sometimes when you know that you need correction, fasting allows you to hear that voice a little bit better, a little bit clearer, to understand intuitively what you are supposed to be doing just a little bit better. Meditation and silence, as he is using it here, is the same thing. That doesn't mean that you have to sit still, right? I do meditation when I am doing my prayer walk. I get out there, I walk my dog, and I pray for you and me and a whole myriad of other people, and then I let him talk to me. I practice walking in the oneness, is what I call it, but it is meditation in motion. You can do it sitting still. I do that too. I've more recently been spending a lot more time doing that, but I go and I sit with my back to the sun, my feet in my bare feet in the ground, so that I can partake in meditation there. Both of those are valid. You can do those with other people. It is not something that you necessarily have to be isolated to do. It makes it easier if you're not distracted. True. Intuition generally does come in the silence, right? If you are meditating on something and all of a sudden you get the 8 laws of creation that pop into your mind, or if you are meditating in silence and you're pulled out of your body and you get a whole experience that reveals to you the inner workings of the 7 internal chakras and the 1 external chakra, and how that is a part of the fundamental harmonics of life. Those things happen. Generally speaking, they happen more frequently in the silence, but they are not restricted to the silence. Once again, a hair's breadth difference, but it makes all of the difference sometimes. Remember that fundamentally the subconscious is omnipotent. There is no limit to the things that can be done when it is given the power to act. Your degree of success is determined by the nature of your desire. If the nature of your desire is in harmony with natural law or the universal mind, it will gradually emancipate the mind and give you invincible courage. And here he is stating what I told you earlier. If your desire is in harmony with natural law or the universal mind, which is God, and him attempting not to use the word God, right? The Holy Spirit, God, and the universal mind are the exact same thing. Then it will be allowed to happen. Sometimes it cannot happen because it is outside of the plan. Right? You can't achieve wealth until you've learned the lesson of poverty, if your lesson is poverty. Right? That doesn't mean that you're never destined for wealth. If your lesson is poverty, learn the lesson. The lesson is the balance between greed and charity. If you're living in poverty, that is your lesson. If you're living in sexual deviation, you have a lesson to learn between lust and chastity. There are 7 lessons, or 7 different virtues and vices, and you're meant to be the balance between them. And if you are in accordance with that balance, you are generally speaking going to be in accordance with natural law and the universal mind, so it will allow the things to happen. You still need to keep in mind that it might not, because it might be out of accordance. That is important. Every obstacle conquered, every victory gained will give you more faith in your power, and you will have greater ability to win. I'm getting stronger every day. Your strength is determined by your mental attitude. If this attitude is one of success and is permanently held with an unswerving purpose, you will attract to yourself from the invisible domain the things you silently demand. By keeping the thought in mind, it will gradually take tangible form, a definite purpose set causes in motion, which will go out in the invisible world and find the materials necessary to serve your purpose. That is in large part true too. You may be pursuing the symbols of power instead of power itself. This is where a lot of people mess up. You may be pursuing fame instead of honor, riches instead of wealth, position and service instead of service. In either event, you will find that they turn to ashes just as you overtake them. This, right? Pursuing fame instead of honor? Yes. Riches instead of wealth? Yes. Position instead of service? Yes. You should be motivated correctly. See the 8 laws of creation. By being motivated correctly, you will attract the things which are meant to be. That means walking in humility, but not to the point where you have no pride in your accomplishments. It means walking in charity, but not to the point where you are giving away everything that you own. You should be pursuing the higher ideal, and the rest will come. If you are seeking to be of service, then the position to be in service will show up. But these symbols of power can also be external physical symbols, right? There's a club out there, and we talk about this club quite often. It is the Masons, of which Mr. Haanel was one. They are very tied up in these symbols in a way that is largely detrimental to them. And this is going by Manly Hall's work, right? Manly Hall, we've done, I forget which book it was. We've done one of them. I told you, I'm bad with references. He was talking about how they perform these rituals and they don't even really believe in them. They use these wands and these swords, and they wear this apron, and they go in front of this pillar. They have the pillars, and they go in front of this block, and they perform these rituals, and they don't even really believe in the power behind the rituals, but they are still pursuing the symbols of power. They are pursuing the attainment of the degrees, or the greater degrees past the Blue Lodge. I don't attribute to them evil intentions. We are being quite clear about that. I don't believe that the entirety of the organization is bad, even if there are definitely some bad players within the organization. That goes for most of the organization. Some of them are aligned with bad. That is a truth. Skull and Bones, that's one of them. But for the most part, these clubs are just people seeking like-minded people for the betterment of themselves. But they follow these symbols without the greater understanding of what they mean. They follow these symbols without an understanding that there is actually power, that you are investing in them. And if you are not intentionally investing your energy into the correct places, then you are probably unintentionally investing your energy into the wrong places. I have no doubt that you can have good results from joining that particular club, but it is going to be exceedingly hard for most people. They will not see the benefits that they were truly expecting from it. And that is in part because of this. You are pursuing the fame instead of honor, the position instead of service. Now, some of them are very good about the service and not the position. Don't get that twisted. The Shriners are out there doing great things. Even if you don't believe in that, like, if you are one of those people who think, oh, the Masons are the bane of the world. The Shriners do more for sick children than any other federal program. That is a thing that has been since there were Shriners. Now, what the motivations are behind that, I assume that they're good. These are men out there trying to do good for children. Premature wealth or position cannot be retained because it has not been earned. We get only what we give, and those who try to get without giving always find that the law of compensation is relentlessly bringing about an exact ultimatum. And once again, right, the law of compensation is not on this list, but the law of response is, the law of returns is, there will be a response, and the law of returns tells you how it will happen, right? Your actions magnified by your intentions. That is what he is calling the law of compensation. It's the law of returns. The race has, hitherto, been for money and other mere symbols of power. But with an understanding of the true source of power, we can afford to ignore the symbols. That is what I do over here. The man with a large bank account finds it unnecessary to load his pockets down with gold. So with the man who has found the true source of power, he is no longer interested in its shams or pretensions. Thought ordinarily leads outwardly in evolutionary directions, but it can be turned within, where it will take hold of the basic principles of things, the heart of things, the spirit of things. When you get to the heart of things, it is comparatively easy to understand them and command them. This is because the spirit of a thing is the thing itself, the vital part of it, the real substance. The form is simply the outward manifestation of the spiritual activity within. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. Thank you, Drunvalo. And so the body, the temple that you navigate around, is piloted by the soul, which makes the decisions. The spirit is the part that allows that to happen. The spirit created the temple for your soul to reside in, and that's what this is saying. The spirit, the overarching, all-consuming, omnipresent, omniscient power that is the electromagnetic forces of creation, which hold all of creation in creation, is God. And God, being the source of all things, can deliver to you the things which are. Nothing is created from nothing. Absolutely nothing will appear without energy invested. These are part of the fundamental laws of creation. And having your focus correct on the spirit is going to make a big difference. For your next exercise, concentrate as nearly as possible in accordance with the method outlined in this part. Let there be no conscious effort or activity associated with your purpose. Relax completely. Avoid any thought of anxiety as to results. Remember that power comes through repose. Let the thought dwell upon your object until it is completely identified with it, until you are conscious of nothing else. That is a handy exercise. If you wish to eliminate fear, concentrate on courage. If you wish to eliminate lack, concentrate on abundance. If you wish to eliminate disease, concentrate on health. And again, all three of those are good exercises. It is concentration or investment of energy upon the thing that you want as opposed to the thing that you don't. Don't think about not being fearful. Think about being courageous. Don't think about not having stuff. Think about having stuff. That is the difference between the positive and the negative. Don't use the negative words in your manifestation practices. Don't say, I don't want. Say, I do want. Say, I need, I want, I am. These are the statements that will bring to you the things which you do want, as opposed to not. If you are saying, I do not want, they don't hear the do not. Always concentrate on the ideal as an already existing fact. This is the Elohim, the germ cell, the life principle which goes forth and enters in and becomes, sets in motion those causes which guide, direct, and bring about the necessary relation which eventually manifest in form. And that is, again, a handy tool. Thought is the property of those Thought is the property of those only who can entertain it. Emerson. Part 17, questions. What is the true method of concentration? To become so identified with the object of your thought that you are conscious of nothing else. What is the result of this method of concentration? Invisible forces are set in motion which irresistibly bring about conditions in correspondence with your thought. What is the controlling factor in this method of thought? Spiritual truth. Why is this so? Because the nature of our desire must be in harmony with natural law. What is the practical value of this method of concentration? Thought is transmuted into character, and character is the magnet which creates the environment of the individual. What is the controlling factor in every commercial pursuit? The mental element. Why is this so? Because mind is the ruler and creator of all form and all events occurring in form. How does concentration operate? by the development of the powers of perception, wisdom, intuition, and sagacity. Why is intuition superior to reason? Because it does not depend upon experience or memory, and frequently brings about the solution of our problem by methods concerning which we are in entire ignorance. And again, I completely disagree with that, right? Like, I mostly disagree. Completely is a big word. We have already stated the why, but intuition is the practical application of experience and memory. It is not the lack of. It can be occasionally, very, very occasionally, will you get a flash of inspiration that is not inspired by something that you already know. What is the result of pursuing the symbol of reality? Symbols frequently turn to ashes just as we overtake them, because the symbol is only the outward form of the spiritual activity within. Therefore, unless we can possess the spiritual reality, the form disappears. The greatest events of an age are its best thoughts. It is the nature of the thought to find its way into action. Bovee. And that is going to wrap up part 17. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult series of topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those, but it is not intentional and I do not apologize for it. The things that I say, I have to say. The clarification that I point out, I have to point out. When I talk about go back to the Bible study, that is because I have spent the time to understand the fundamental flaws in that book and the reason why you probably should not be using it. People are still going to use it. There's still going to be a control system, but it's not going to be my control system. I am here for those who are seeking different. If anything that I say truly offends you, you are not ready for the knowledge that I am giving out. You are not here to partake. You are here to have confirmed to you things that you already think you know. I have used the concepts and the things that I tell you about in my life. I have brought about the things like real change. I have healed my throat. I have removed a cyst from my throat. That is a thing. I have healed my shoulder. It is through the power of the Holy Spirit, right? God allows this to happen, but it is my desire and my focus and my energy being directed in the correct manner that has allowed this to happen. It is by living my life in accordance with the 8 laws of creation. It is to the best of my ability. I'm not saying I am perfect. I'm never going to say I'm perfect. But I am constantly striving for the perfect. I am seeking to be the correct in the situation, right? I try to take the time to understand the other viewpoint. Most of the time, that is on an intuitive level. I can hear you say one sentence and I can tell you a lot about you. And that is just because I have spent the time. It's the same with the fasting and meditation, right? I have spent the time. The things that I tell you to do is because I have done them, not because I speculate about them or I guess or I've read it, because I have put it into play, because I have used it. Focusing on what you want as opposed to what you don't want makes a difference. It really does. And not just in your outlook, but in the practical things that happen in your life. Keeping yourself focused in the correct way develops the mental capacity, the muscle memory to be able to do that without thinking about it. These days when I hear the negative, I understand where it's coming from and I dismiss it most of the time. Sometimes I get caught up in it just like everybody else, but that is just part of being human. That is part of our trials, right? Learning to overcome is part of the lesson. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If there is another work that you would like to see me discuss in the manner that I am doing here, leave that in the comments as well. I am making a list. And if you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you were here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.